Hello YouTube, I am back. Sorry, my voice is still a little bit croaky, shall we say. It sounds like I smoked 60 cigarettes in 2 seconds. All seriousness, it's good to be back. I thought that I'd do just a couple of videos as I've finally got a day off work, thank goodness. So, in case for those who don't know, today is November the 6th, it's Roz Williams' birthday, and he would have been 55. Praise the mighty Lord in heaven. And I thought that as it's his birthday, I'd want to kind of talk about my experience with meeting Chrisitan Death when my old band played with Chrisitan Death back in Milton Keynes, and I'd also want to talk about how much Roz Williams, as well as many other goths, been seen as an icon and how much he ended up influencing my type of style and fashion. So I wanted to get straight into why Roz Williams meant so much to not just myself, but probably to other goths out there who saw him as this iconic, androgynous, overall god of controversy and just full-on expressionism. The way how I got into Roz Williams, or Chrisitan Death for that matter, was I was about 12 years old, and it was literally something that came up in a recommendation when I was listening to, I think it was 45 Grave I was listening to, and it came up with Remo Distress because it's one of those songs that tends to be quite popular and it's the most well-known song during that era. And obviously, first time listening to Remo Distress, I was trying to differentiate the difference between what was considered goth and what was considered death rock, and listening to the build up of it, I can see the connection to what the blueprints of goth that it had, such as the bass riff, the screechy, eerie guitar sound, but this had a lot more punkish type of vibrato to it. There was a lot more punk roots in its repertoire than there was in like English goth. And already, as you know, as the song goes, it builds up, it hypes up, and already you feel this type of pulp and during the song, and then as soon as Roz Williams starts singing, blaring the controversy out with using the N-word within the first few lines, and I was kind of blown away thinking, wow, was that acceptable back then? Was it deliberate? Was it like a shock value? And then obviously when you find out about Roz Williams' background of him being raised up in this type of ultra-conservative, almost far-right family, it was using a satirical purpose. He was using it to mimic and take the piss out of the way how he would live and the family that he was brought up in. And that was quite interesting, the fact that you could take something so controversial and just use it as almost like a mimic, something to ridicule. And that's what I like about artists who will take the most controversial topic and they'll represent it as how people would see it, but those who are smart enough or artistic enough to denotate and connotate would understand there is a meaning to this type of stuff. Like Roz Williams was always ridiculed in the past for being a Nazi sympathiser for his use of swastikas on stage, how he would come up wrapped around a swastika flag around him and stuff like that. And it was very controversial, and if you were not to understand Roz Williams' type of sense of humour and the message he was portraying about this use of irony, the fact that he would use it to use a shock purpose, but he was probably one of the most liberal people that I've ever known. It was purely for like a shock value, to get someone's attention across that you should never judge a book by its cover. And obviously Marilyn Manson would end up copying loads of Roz Williams' influence, such as the early Spooky Kids days, where he would iron the swastika flag and all this type of nonsense, and then he would use similar Roz Williams type of look and styles to mimic. And even in the song The Beautiful People, he actually paraphrases a quote from Roz Williams' solo song Flowers, which is Can't See the Forest Through the Trees. And it's a shame because Roz Williams, if you don't know who he is, if you're just getting into like the goth subculture, everyone will talk about Roz Williams because he was quite underrated within the time he was alive. He also went to form Shadow Project after he left Christian Death, and even Shadow Project was just an amazing idea of a band. It was so different to Christian Death. It was more ambient, it was more almost spoken word, but it just blew a new sense of creativity and darkness within Shadow Project. And Shadow Project is one of my all-time favourite bands to listen to, even on a normal day, if you just want to calm yourself down and just hear the moans of life and society through another person's perspective, then it's just a brilliant band to listen to. What drew me to Roz Williams as a musician as well as a inspiration was not only just his creative outlets and using it to shock people, but also get his message across, this creative outlet, but also his sense of style as well, which I found very interesting because he was quite androgynous as well. He used to come in dresses, bright costumes at one moment, and then bright dresses one moment, and then the next he would be in a tie suit, long hair with a red streak through it, smoking cigarettes, doing spoken poetry. He was a very artistic and creative genius, in my opinion, and you can hear that through his lyrics. A lot of his solo project is a very good example. I find his solo project to be a lot more outstanding than, say, his work with Christian Death and Shadow Project, and even his instrumental, ambient project, Premature Ejaculation. Because if you listen to his lyrics and even read his lyrics, there's a lot more sense of himself in those. So if you were to listen to, say, anything off his collaboration with Giante, Demonte, which I probably butchered, especially songs like Manic Depression, where they both have this beautiful collaboration, or even the cover of Every Dream Home to Heartache, there's just so much emphasis and power in the way how he'd sing it, how he would portray the lyrics. One of my favourite songs of all time by Roz Williams before he died was Home Is Where, because you can sense the struggle he was going through with his heroin addiction, his depression, his anxiety, and it's the most eye-opening song I've ever heard to the struggles of inner demons, and I really strongly suggest you check that out. But as far as the fashion icon goes, I was always influenced by the way how Roz Williams would dress, this type of androgynous, gender-bending type of persona, and I've just found it so inspiring that you could basically look so feminine but yet masculine at the same time, almost like what Pete Burns and David Bowie did. But to me, Roz Williams did it on a different level, in my opinion, and it was just so amazing and so beautiful. This is just probably me ranting a little bit of how much I really do appreciate Roz Williams, because since the age of 12, it's about 11 years now, I've always just held him as one of my strongest influences as a musician, as a writer, and even as a showman, because loads of the costumes I used to wear for my previous band were very Roz influenced, quite androgynous, quite feminine as well. So I got a lot of that inspiration primarily from him, but also influenced from other people. And this is what I wanted to talk about when it came to actually supporting Christian Death back in 2014. I was in a shock rock band, or death rock shock rock band, called the Acid Ballet, and this was actually our first show. Long story short, my singer at the time, he knew the promoter of a certain venue, and Christian Death were touring around the UK. Milton Keynes was one of the stops, and thankfully that's where my band would practice, so we were going to go anyway, because why would you miss the opportunity to see Christian Death if you're into that music? And it came to the point where we got asked to actually support Christian Death. Now bear in mind, for those who do not know, because Roz Williams died back in 1998, and before that, when he left Christian Death originally, back in the early 80s, Vala Clam came to take over the role as a singer as well as guitarist. Vala Clam came in during the Catastrophe Ballet, which is the second album, to do guitar and part-time vocals. But after, when Roz left, he pleaded Vala to carry on the band with a different name, because that was Roz Williams' name. And originally he said yes, that would be no problem, but then obviously they changed the name back to Christian Death, and Roz Williams felt quite hurt about it, so there was this horrible confliction between Roz and Vala for so many years, until it was kind of patched up. shortly before Rozz died. So when it came to actually meeting Valor Clan and the members of Chrisitan Death, it was quite surreal. It was actually really nice. They did a whole 30th anniversary of the Catastrophe Ballet, was when Vela was introduced and Roz Williams was still on vocals, and it's a beautiful album in general. I mean, I strongly suggest listening to it. It's a lot more blue and melancholic, but also at the same time holds a stronger, creepier vibe than to the Only Fear to Pain album. And speaking to Valor Clan about Roz Williams, it was quite surreal because it's not something that any singer, well, replacement of the original singer would want to talk about, especially when there's such a high rivalry in the goth community about who is better, Roz or Vela. But it was just nice to understand that as much as he always will see himself in Roz's shadow, because Roz Williams is a completely different icon to, say, Valor Clan, who took Chrisitan Death more into the metal scene, whilst Roz kept it to the androgynous shock goth scene. But it was this nice appreciation that he still had for his band member at that time, and the understanding that it's an homage to the album himself when he played the Catastrophe Ballet. So the gig itself, it was really surreal to be on stage, sharing the same stage with Chrisitan Death, who you listened to from when you were young. And the band, our set ourselves was interesting to say the least, because I don't think we knew what we were doing per se. We dressed the parts, we were quite shocky, very, kill me for saying this, but nearly spooky kids influenced along Alien Sex Fiend and the Birthday Party type of vibe. That was what we were trying to go for. And this is our first proper gig. We wanted to try and make it a little bit special, so we had a sample playing in the background of like an opening track, and then we'd kick into our songs, and these were very patchwork songs at the beginning. We wrote them, but looking back and hearing it now, you could tell this is very first baby steps, and loads of the song that we played later on in our career would end up being patchworked, so we'd change it around, add some new things, keep some new things, but it was just nice having the atmosphere and having people stay for us, because normally people don't stay for support acts. So it was good that we brought the attention of the local Milton Keynes metal scene and rock scene, as well as Chrisitan Death's attention themselves, because we saw them peering through the door listening, and it was so nice, it was so exciting to get that adrenaline off you and to know that you did a great set and you played your show and people coming up and applauding. And then when you had Chrisitan Death themselves coming to you after the gig, after they've done their amazing set, such a brooding, beautiful homage to the entire album. And yes, they came up to us and asked if we had a demo, and we did do a demo, but it was horribly recorded. It was one of those that we just wanted to not tell, not share ever, but one of our bandmates, he decided to give this very shit 4-song demo to Chrisitan Death, and we were just there going, good, thinking this is really bad quality, this is really horribly done. And they came back after 20 minutes and they said that they'll let us know when the next playing around, and that was so unreal, because shortly afterwards, about 2 years later, they did ask if we'd be up for supporting them again, but during this time we were doing our own shows around the UK and all this type of stuff. So it was just unreal to kind of get the nod and approval from Chrisitan Death themselves. The only thing about that gig which I thought was a little bit sad was the fact that Valor Clan, apart from the Catastrophe Ballet era, he didn't play any Roz Williams songs prior, because they did the whole album as a full, and then he did another set of their better well-known songs like Church No Return and all this type of stuff. But there was nothing of the Roz Williams era, no Spiritual Cramp, no Romeo's Distress, nothing like that. And I feel that's a little bit of a bummer. Don't know whether it's because he held a grudge, or he still had a bad blood playing it, or it was just an off day on that situation. But that was the only thing that was a little bit unusual. But yes, thank you for hearing me rant about Roz Williams and my time with Chrisitan Death. I just wanted to get this out the way because as it was his birthday, I really wanted to pay an homage to how important he is to the goth icon, as a goth icon, and to the goth subculture itself, and just an overall influence to any androgynous expressioning artist as general. And thank you very much for listening. It's good to be back, and I'll be doing another video right after this one, so I'll catch you in a bit.